Ryan, firstly, congratulations on your career. You announced your retirement last week. I think you've been without a club for 1.5 years, roughly. But yeah, why have you decided now is the time to announce that?
So actually, I've been without a club just under a year. It was actually last year of November. So yeah, that marks almost a year. Why now? Because I was actually still looking around if I was able to find a different team to play for. I did not quit football because I wanted to quit. I had a small yeah dispute with my last team, and we decided to terminate the contract. So therefore, in the last January window and in the last summer window, I was trying to see if I was able to find a different team that I wanted to play for. I did had a few offers from teams, but those teams were not really interested. Didn't really interest me, and therefore, after the summer, I decided, it's okay. So hence the late announcement.
Well, in the last year, you have made a couple of Legends appearances as well. So I suppose that's ready to take that next stage in your career, catching up with old teammates. I see you played for Ajax, wasn't it, during this last week? You were in the Liverpool Ajax game last year, or earlier this year, rather.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, these games are nice to play. It's of course, first of all, always a pleasure and honor to be invited by all teams, former teams, and of course, eventually when you see old colleagues that you shared great memories with, it's beautiful happening.
And you're releasing a retirement musical film. That must be a first for a former footballer. I believe it's called After the Whistle. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yes, After the Whistle is basically a short film that takes you through the journey of my career, the highs and the lows. It's a little bit under 30 minutes. The film it shows you a few old clips, but also it has been really directed and shot also with a few actors, so just trying to get the experience creative and nice as possible for the viewer. And I felt like, doing something different, and I think we accomplished that.
And it's something throughout your career where you've always been that little bit different in terms of that creativity. Like, didn't you release a rap autobiography a few years ago? It's always something that you can see you really enjoy doing.
Absolutely. I can establish that definitely I'm a creative person. Always have been. I remember the early days that I was obviously also involved in the early days with music, where I got a lot of criticism, obviously. But that has been basically my form of exercising my hobby. Other football players like to go out, other foot players like to go shopping, and I like to make music in the studio, and that was my off time.
Now, I don't want to have any, I suppose spoilers isn't the right word when it's looking back as a career,
Right.
but what's the Liverpool section of it like?
The Liverpool section, I mean, it's a combination of I would say glory content, but at the same time, it's over some music where I actually rap about me being, of course, the first time being fully responsible for my own finances and my own life. Since I joined Liverpool, that was the first time living abroad, living by myself. Prior to that, I was living at my parents' house. So I'm kind of describing that. Yeah, at that time I was kind of, at the beginning a little bit over the place, enjoying the freedom, and that is how I wanted to capture it on film and show it to the audience and being honest about it.
And if we look back to when you do join Liverpool, you're still so young. You're only 20 years old. And as you said, you're living at home. That must have been a real eye-opener. Like, Ajax is a big club, but coming all this way to Liverpool, that pressure is something else.
Absolutely. I think, people underestimate the step from Holland to the UK, especially in football terms, even though it's only 1 hour away, right, flying. But yeah, for me, it was an incredible big shift in life, and an impact what it had on my personality and person itself. I had to adapt as soon as possible to a new culture. At that time, I had a price tag, so there was kind of like a certain pressure on me, and people expected immediately some results. And I needed time. And I've spoken a lot about Rafa Benitez in the past. I always gave him credit for his coaching style and his tactics. But I also was really honest about, the way he was basically managing players, and that was not his expertise. And also I, as a young player, was struggling with his way of managing. I wished, of course, he had more of the modern day managers like Jurgen Klopp and those guys who are able and understand younger players.
If we look back to when you did join, I think you've said it on Sky actually this week that you knew you were regarded as one of the best players of your generation at the time, one of the best talents, I should say. And you were linked with a lot of clubs. I believe Arsenal was one that you're regularly linked to. Just how many teams were in for you, and how did you end up at Liverpool?
Yeah, so I was linked to Arsenal, I was linked to Inter, I was linked to Juventus, and a few other respectfully smaller teams. How did I end up at Liverpool? I think it was the conversation that my management had initially and eventually that I had with Rafa Benitez that convinced me that that would be the right place to go. Funny enough, the way the conversation went was actually the quite opposite at how it eventually turned out to be, right? Because Rafa Benitez promised me time, he promised me guidance, he promised to work with me, and develop me as he established that, hey, yes, you're talented, but you still have so much to learn, which was the truth. And for me, it was basically also what I already had at Ajax. They were working with me on the stuff that I had to improve. And I thought that I was going to get similar treatment at Liverpool. And it was far from the truth at that time. I was completely by myself. Had no individual training sessions or coaches that would do individual work with me. It was completely up to myself. And I had to learn and adapt how to, from coming from a classic 3-3, 4-3-3 from, Dutch style into a classic 4-4-2, understanding what it means to be a winger in that strategy. And that was not easy at that time.
Despite those difficulties, I think you still had a really impressive first season. You started a lot of games still, you scored a lot of goals. But then after that, you're more a substitute. Was there a conversation there with Rafa? Did you approach him about why it changed? Or were you just frustrated not getting the answers you wanted?
Yeah. I tried to go a lot of times into his office, and I don't think he really appreciated that often. In Holland, it's very common if you're not understanding the situation that you're trying to understand by going to the manager and having conversation. And I think, as far as I remember, Rafa didn't really like confrontation. It was kind of like constantly a little clash between us, and all he was saying was, shut up and work hard. Okay, but what does it mean? What does working hard mean, right? Explain it to me. So I was kind of struggling at that time to understand what he really expected from me. And it was not an easy time.
Was there a moment where you noticed things were starting to change? Because obviously they signed Riera, didn't they, in that summer going into your second season? So you got that competition on the left wing. Was there a moment where you're not starting as much and you can point back to it, or is it just a bit strange looking back, trying to work out where it started to unfold?
Well, I mean, the big difference with the first season and second season was first season he was doing a lot of rotation, right? And then second season he slowly integrated more of a fixed 11, not too many rotations. And I was left basically outside of the boat at that time, and I had to try and come in. And like I said, not an easy time as a youngster. But it definitely shaped me and formed me for the player that I became to be afterwards.
And I know it must be so frustrating at the time when you are a substitute a lot. but you made an impact. You're fifth on Liverpool's all-time scoring charts as scoring a substitute, I think, with 12 goals, and that's only because Mohamed Salah's overtaken you fairly recently. So I suppose that adds to the frustration as well. You're coming on, you're doing what you need to do, and you're still not getting those starting opportunities.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It, like I said, it was a confusing time, and often there were moments where I had, let's say, a very good training week. Right, I got all the compliments from teammates and assistant coaches, and then at the end of the week, I would be out of the squad. Right, so yeah, you imagine that can be working very confusing for a young player, not understanding why he's out of the squad if he had a great week. So these type of things happened a lot. It was not the easy way to deal with, but again, for long after that, it was easier to deal with in my career.
And I think all Liverpool supporters, when they think of Ryan Babel, they think of big Champions League moments, Anfield European nights. You got a fair few of them. What was it about that stage? Because just thinking your name, I think Arsenal, I think the assist against Real Madrid, the Chelsea away from home as well. There's so many big moments in that competition.
Yeah, Champions League games, especially with Liverpool, and then even more especially at Anfield, were incredibly different. The energy was different, especially at that time. You would feel already that somehow we had the confidence to play against any team, and yeah, you saw that also the players somehow got the best moments out of them, right? Also myself and as a team, and especially with the energy of the fans, we had so much strength and confidence that it didn't matter who we were up against. And once a team is performing at its all-time high, then of course the individual players can even pop out more. And I had those moments as well.
Obviously, Real Madrid coming to Anfield next week. That's a huge game for Liverpool now, but you're a member of that last Liverpool side to actually beat Real Madrid. They've been a bit of a white whale for them in recent years. But what are your memories of those games? Like I've already said, you got the assist for Stevie in the 4-0. You came on at the Bernabeu. Just amazing memories, I'm sure.
Absolutely amazing memories. What do I remember? I think it was a time where Madrid had a lot of Dutch players. So that is, of course, what some of the alignment that I had in common with a lot of familiar players that were playing at Real Madrid. I remember very well prior to that game, we had an international break, and Wesley was pretty arrogant, saying like, next week we're gonna beat you guys, and I was like, I don't think so. So it was good memories, and eventually, when you win against Madrid, of course, it's massive. Yeah.
And it wasn't just beating them at Anfield 4-0. That's unprecedented. That's ridiculous.
Yes. No, yeah, we also actually dominated and were really, really good. We were actually also really the better team, and we deserved to win the way we did. Again, it doesn't happen too often against Madrid. So that's why I think definitely it's an historical game.
I think history looks back on that game, and it maybe is a bit too harsh on Real Madrid, saying they were nowhere near as good as they had been in the past. There were still a lot of really big names in there, and a lot of them Dutch, as you already touched on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I think what we can conclude is that they weren't really a team, but if you just dissect the players, I mean, it was still Real Madrid with, the best players all over the world. So, I think that would be unfair to state it that way. I mean, they had Pepe at his peak of his career. They had Sergio Ramos at the peak of his career. They had Casillas at his peak of his career. I think we have to give credit to Liverpool for how we were able to play.
What was Rafa's preparation like for that game? Because I suppose that's something where he did excel as a manager in those Champions League nights.
Well, Rafa's ability to tactically dissect the opponent was very good. So he understood where the weaknesses often were, and we would the whole week train how to take advantage of those weaknesses. And I think that was Rafa's strength. And same with Real Madrid. We had the advantage, of course, first winning at 1-0 in Bernabeu. And we knew at home that they had to come, and we were definitely anticipating on those movements.
What was going through your head when you get that assist? Because it's a great run down the wing, a brilliant cross, and then Stevie's finish. It makes it one of Liverpool's best Champions League goals.
Yeah, yeah. At the end, it was not even an easy ball to take for Stevie. So, he made my assist definitely looking great. Was with a little bounce, but again, it's Steven Gerrard, so I'm not surprised. But no, yeah, it was an amazing feeling, and Anfield exploding. And of course, one of my great memories of being a Liverpool player.
Did you swap shirts with anyone after the two games?
I think I did. I don't remember who, but it was most likely with a Dutch player. Yeah.
Obviously, that year shaped up to look like it was going to be a really great year, but then Liverpool just fell short in the Champions League, just fell short in the league. Why was it they couldn't quite pit Manchester United that year?
Very good question. Yeah, I mean, people often blame the infamous press conference from Rafa when he started attacking Manchester United. That was the turning point for us. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I felt like yeah, maybe we were too distracted overall, and Man United was just focused clearly on just winning, and they probably knew that we were more focusing on them than they on us. And I think that maybe eventually could have been the difference, right? Because I do recall that every time when we would, I guess, drop points, we would immediately trying to see what was the result for United. Did they lose as well? Did they drop points? And I guess that made us maybe a little bit nervous and understood that we are giving it away. So, yeah.
What was the reaction in the dressing room after that Rafa press conference?
I don't really recall that. Personally, I wasn't really paying attention, but I did recall reading, obviously, a lot of responses in papers that people felt that the press conference was yeah, I had a certain taste to it, and then only after that I started rewatching the press conference, why it actually had so much attention. And but yeah, I don't really remembering being in the moment that I was still so young myself, and I was busy with myself, and but I'm sure the older players at that time were definitely having a chat or a response, but I don't personally recall anything.
Now, I want to touch on your own relationship with Rafa in a little bit, but first I'll go with you weren't the only player that had difficulties with him, and one player who left in that summer 2009, Xavi Alonso. What was that like from your point of view? Like, obviously, he nearly goes the year before. He's one of the best players in the team. And then those fallings out with Rafa, is it something you're aware of that other players have got difficulties with him?
No, I wasn't really fully aware. And of course, you read things after. So, it makes sense. But yeah, losing one of your best players simply because they are not really happy the way either they have been treated or I think that is definitely a big disappointment. I think any team and manager should try and do everything they can to keep their best players and to help them. And yeah, the way we lost Xabi obviously was yeah, a big disappointment for us. Same with Mascherano, and same with, of course, eventually yeah, Fernando Torres. But obviously Fernando Torres didn't leave under Rafa Benitez, but it did had influence eventually prior to what happened the seasons. So yeah, it didn't make us stronger. Of course, respectfully, the replacements after were not able to live up to the same level as Xabi Alonso. And yeah, we had the following years, struggling as a Liverpool team.
In January 2010, and I think that was a rejected bid from Birmingham City for you. Was that something that you were aware of at the time when you spoke about that? Were there many clubs in for you during your Liverpool career?
Yeah. Yeah, there were many teams that are trying to sign me, and Liverpool was blocking it at that time. That was also really confusing because, if I didn't really get play time, why wasn't I able to leave or, at least go on loan? And um, so, yeah, I was aware from the Birmingham interest at that time. Absolutely.
Is it something where you spoke to them going, well, if you're not letting me play, why can't I go?
Not literally like that, but we did try to understand the reason of Liverpool at that time not giving me a chance to find luck elsewhere. And the constant feedback was that I was important to Liverpool. So yeah.
Now you've always been quite vocal on social media, and I believe a couple of them proved to be a little bit costly for you. We'll start with getting fined for saying you've been dropped, I think, for a game against Stoke. What was the Rafa's reaction to that one?
He didn't like it. He called me. He called me in his office after. I think they lost that game too. And yeah, that was not an uncomfortable conversation. But yeah, that was again also one of those confusing moments. We had so many injuries up front. We hardly had any attackers, and then I'm one of the only attackers that is actually fit, and you've put him out of the squad. So that was a really confusing moment also in my career. So yeah, I was very frustrated.
Rafa left at the end of the season. Did you hear from him? Did you text him at all, or is it one you're
No,
happy it's done?
no, we didn't have that type of relationship. So no.
And you have been vocal over the years about him. You've already said that yourself, but is it something where time's healed wounds slightly? You can understand it more now that you're 37 rather than 27, whatever.
um, I would definitely think that a conversation in person would probably heal old wounds and old traumas, but for now that hasn't happened. So I still carry them with me. I still believe that um, yeah, he definitely had a lot of influence on my career and the way I was portrayed. Also to the audience and to the media. Um, so of course, that is not something that you can easily forget, right? And of course, years after, when you understand how football really works, yeah, managers and football teams, they do have influence on a player's career. They can make or break you. And um, I had a lot of, yeah, um, how can I say that? Based on that time, it was haunting me a lot in my career after, and yeah, that was partly, of course, because of Rafa Benitez.
Have you crossed paths with him at all since you both left
No,
Liverpool?
never. Actually, I'm lying. Yes, once. I remember it was very brief when I joined Fulham back eventually, and we had to play Newcastle. He was coach of Newcastle, if I remember. So yeah, we did.
Now, this film you've got coming out is about those highs and lows of your career, and I suppose Rafa is quite influential in that because it does seem a couple of times in your career you're done with the biggest European stage, you've not made it, but then you did come back in and you did really well. I think with Deportivo La Coruña, you got you moved to Fulham and everything. You got back in the Netherlands squad as well. It
Yes,
must have been nice when you're a bit mature to prove that point.
yes. Yes, it's being showcased in the film. Very brief because it's only a 30-minute film. Um, Not going into too much detail, but you kind of catch the overall sentiment of how the journey went. But yeah, that's definitely also been showcased in the movie, the highs and the lows.
um, One ongoing debate, I suppose, about you during your Liverpool career was left winger or striker. Like later on in your career, you proved yourself to be more of those whispers that you would have liked to go up front, but you were always left wing. And as you already said, 4-4-2 is very different to 4-3-3. So, what was your preference, and is it 4-4-2 you have to defend a bit more, so that was just a cultural difference that was hard to adapt to?
it was it was everything. It was how can I explain? Definitely the culture. It was the language. It was the way of training. It was the way my teammates were with each other. Everything was different. And it was not easy to make friends. Usually you have a lot of things in common, and now I didn't. So I had to try and make the best out of things. But just I noticed as I got on and slowly were showing myself on the pitch, I saw that slowly players started to cater to me as soon as I started to perform a bit.
August 2010, I'm going to say Barbelcopter.
Yeah.
What on earth was the story behind that? Were you actually on the move
Yeah.
to a pub? Were you just having some fun there?
The Barbelcopter story, yeah, that was an interesting one. I remember on deadline day, I don't remember the season, but it was very last minute, and I think it was with West Ham United, where they are trying to do a swap deal at that time with Carlton Cole. And it's supposed to be a loan deal. That's what I've been told by my agent. They had brief contact with my agent, and I think we had 6 hours left to the deadline, and I was called and been told to immediately go to the airport because Liverpool representatives would wait for me, and then we would go there and fly to London to make the deal happen. And as I arrive, I saw like a very small little, 2-person helicopter. It was a very small one, and I've never flown in a helicopter before. And yeah, that helicopter didn't really look safe. But as I had this journey, I was also very active on Twitter. So I was actually tweeting my whole journey. So I described the moment arriving and what I saw. I was like, wait, what's going on? I have to go for a medical and everything. And maybe my life is depending on this little thing. Like, I was having a little banter on Twitter with that story. And in a nutshell, long story short, we arrived, and eventually I forgot the gentleman's name. He was one of the sports directors. We arrived and we were then picked up by I guess drivers from West Ham, and then he was like, yeah, you're going to sign a 5-year deal, and then we're going to sign Carlton Cole. And I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean 5 years? I thought it was a loan deal. He was like, no, it will be a swap deal. And so me calling my agent, and my agent said, no, definitely a loan deal. It was we didn't discuss anything 5 years. So it's like, put him on the phone. And then they've been talking, and then I could tell that the conversation didn't end well. And then the transfer basically didn't fall through. And then I could see the disappointment in the gentleman's face. He made some calls saying, yeah, the player doesn't want to sign, and so he blamed it on me basically. Mm-hmm. That I didn't want to keep my end of the deal, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, but that was not what we discussed, right? It was a loan deal. And he was like, oh yeah, no, I thought it would be better for you to sign, and you can develop, and we have a clause to buy you back. And I was like, well, my agent didn't told me that. And so then he was disappointed, and rather than flying back to Liverpool, he put me on the train, so I had to go back on the train to Liverpool.
In hindsight, do you wish you had gone to West Ham at that point in your career?
No, because I had still so much belief that I could do it, for Liverpool. I think thinking about it, it was just really the people managing the club didn't really do a great job by managing the players the right way. Of course, when Benitez left, and I remember also, I think there were a few changes in the directors. I had some hope because you had Roy Hodgson coming in. But yeah, it was kind of there also already a little bit too late because Roy Hodgson was under pressure really quick, and he was trying to build on the more experienced players and then had time to work in younger players. And I was one of the younger players still. So yeah, it didn't turn around my Liverpool career.
Like you didn't get the game time under Roy Hodgson or Kenny Dalglish, but was your relationship with them better than it was with Rafa?
It was good. It was good. I admire Roy Hodgson, nice gentleman. Old school way of giving training sessions and managing. Good relationship with Kenny Dalglish. Kenny Dalglish came in as an intern. I remember at that time, was not the official manager yet. And I was already in talks with the team in Germany. And he said, look, if for some reason you end up not going, I promise you to work with you and give you your chances. I think I only worked 2 weeks or something under Kenny Dalglish. And then I left to Germany.
I think in those 2 weeks, you had your other costly social media moment with Howard Webb. How'd you look back on that?
Yeah. The historical tweet. Yeah, it was. I think my tweets were justified, but obviously it was from the overall perspective, maybe not nice and maybe disrespectful. Be seen as disrespectful, and hence the punishment. But yeah, historical moment. Even me, I was kind of shocked at the effect it had on social media. One of the very first moments, I guess a tweet went really viral like that. It was globally recognized, and I remember a lot of different news outlets were covering it. CNN, ESPN, all the way to America, they were all covering it, and I've seen my social media following growing in an instant. It was mad. So yeah, definitely an experience on itself. Yeah.
Well, Liverpool fans loved it. They love you for it.
Yeah, I know. I get reminded often.
With you move to Hoffenheim, it's around the time that Torres goes, Squires comes in, and we've heard how at one point Suarez and Torres was going to be the partnership, but then Chelsea come in. So I was wondering, how do you fit into all of this? Because if you look at the numbers, the two players that go out pay for the two players that come in. Were you aware of all these other transfers going on, or is it just focusing on your own future?
Only really after was it that I was like aware of the happenings. Also, if I analyze, I would say maybe it would have been a better decision to stay at Liverpool with all the changes. If I knew beforehand that these changes would happen, maybe it would have increased my playtime in Liverpool, because I remember signings like Downing and a lot of these players who eventually didn't really were able to, put Liverpool back on the map. I think watching back, maybe that could have been for new opportunities for myself. But it was already too late.
So with Liverpool, would you say right move, but the wrong time? Like if it was a different manager, or you're a little bit older, or even English football 10 years ago, where it is moving more towards the 4-3-3?
Yeah, different time, absolutely. What I notice now is that you see that a lot of young players get way more chances than what they did back in my time, right? I see a lot of similarities with a lot of these young players who are now, let's say, the heart of teams. One of the best examples is Saka from Arsenal right now, right? Incredible player. But if you analyze how he started, it was very shaky. It was not really right. But again, they kept keeping trust. They kept giving game time. And of course, with game time, he is able to develop and come eventually the player he is today. And I was missing that in my time. You didn't really had so much time to do that.
If we touch on a couple of your Liverpool teammates, we'll start with Steven Gerrard. Just how good was he to play with? Just how good was Steven Gerrard?
Well, I was lucky to experience him in his peak of his career. I think he was 27 at that time, so incredible, obviously. And yeah, very fortunate to be part at the Liverpool team at that time to see. Um, yeah, just the leadership he had. Right, he was not really a talker, but he talked in the right ways, at the right moments, at the right times, and he was definitely him and obviously Jamie Carragher, the leaders of the team.
And Fernando Torres, attacking rival, I suppose, for you. How good was he as a striker? Because that's another player you played alongside at his absolute peak.
Yeah. Yeah, in games, Fernando was really, electrifying. He was actually um, he was not your average striker, right? Because he would score the most difficult goals, but I don't necessarily feel like he had, especially if you're from Holland, you have like this fine touch, if that makes sense, right? Like a Bergkamp, or he was very different. He was very direct, and and yeah, he would sometimes score impossible goals. He would definitely surprise you. But obviously, I was training with him, and then you could also see a lot of things not going well in training. And but then in games, it would not, you wouldn't see that back in real games. So um, he was an unpredictable player. I think that was part of his strength. That yeah, like big defenders like John Terry and Rio Ferdinand didn't know what to do with him.
They're probably the two biggest names from your time at Liverpool. So, taking away those two obvious ones, was there anyone that surprised you or that stood out as an amazing player in training in the games who really caught your eye that you enjoyed playing with?
Yeah, I have to give credits to Yoshi Benayoun. He looked and seemed like a very fragile player, not the fastest, not the strongest, but his eye, his vision, his way of handling the ball was really world class, and he was very important for Liverpool. Clearly, if you look at his stats, and overall a very nice person, very nice teammate. So yeah, he was one of the few players in the squad that surprised me a lot. And yeah.
Was Yossi someone who helped you settle at Liverpool as well? Because he was ex-Ajax, wasn't he? And then you've also got Dirk Kuyt, another Dutch player. Like, I know you found it difficult, but these sorts of players have their arm around you, help you settle in a little bit.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, if you build relationships quick, it helps, of course, to settle. And like I said in the beginning, I was looking for friends and teammates to hang out with, and it was very different from my time at Ajax. So yeah, they were definitely in the beginning one of the few places where I would sit next to it at dinner or at breakfast, to have conversation with. Yeah.
And what's your favourite Liverpool memory?
Um, I mean, I had a few, I had a lot, but I think one of the classic ones was, I guess, the win at Old Trafford. Um, you know, that was definitely a win. Was Manchester United with Ronaldo and Tevez and Berbatov, Rooney, name them, Van der Sar. So to go there and win the win the way we did was definitely one of the better memories. Absolutely.
Now, it seems a bit odd to ask this considering the frustration in your Liverpool career, but are there any regrets looking back, or is it just that's what happened?
I think the one of the most important regret is, of course, leaving the way I did. Yeah, I think that is one of the regrets overall, not just Liverpool regret, but my football regret for sure.
And how do you want the fans to remember you? Because I'm sure they come up to you, they mention Howard Webb, they mention Barbelcopter, but taking them aside, talking about on the football pitch, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I still get remembered for my long distance shooting, obviously.
Oh yeah, the Leon one was doing the rounds the other day, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, Look, I mean, of course, it's how do I want to be remembered, but I think overall, what people remember me for is, the talented player who didn't really get his fair shot under Rafa Benitez. So you now always have the question mark, what if, right? And again, I don't want to fully blame and point fingers to others. I also take very much responsibility. And of course, a lot of things I could have definitely handled differently. But at the end of the day, I think I'm at peace with how they remember me at the moment today. So
And now you're retired, is it one way you can come back to Anfield a bit more, see current Liverpool play?
absolutely, absolutely, I tend to do that, and hopefully, yeah. Also, as a fan now, see a lot of good Liverpool days.
And there's a strong Dutch connection in the squad at the moment, obviously, with the new head coach, Van Dijk, Gravenberch, Gakpo. What have you made of those four?
Yeah, good combination. Manager fits in well now, obviously. Ryan Gravenberch finally found his comfort zone, and shows how good he is. I've always mentioned and said in the beginning that would be a good move for him. Unfortunately, under Klopp, yeah, we couldn't really see much yet. But now he finally found his position, and I'm very happy for these guys. Of course, I'm following them. Yeah,
Is he one you played with at Ajax? Would you cross paths there?
I play with Gravenberch. Yeah.
So would you have seen that talent early on, or is it a little bit surprised that he's taken these steps? Because it's completely different to his fortunes at Bayern or even last year at Liverpool.
No, I already saw his talent, and I've expressed that in interviews even prior to his signing. So I'm not really surprised. No.
And what about Arne Slot's start? It's big shoes to fill in Jurgen Klopp, and it's going better than anyone could have imagined. But obviously, he's done well in Holland. He's won league titles. He's got to European finals. Is it going better than anyone could have imagined for you, or in Holland can you see how good he was, and it's not that much of a surprise?
He did very well in Holland, and now if you look back at it, maybe it should have not been a surprise, but at the same time, I think it was a surprise, only for the simple fact that usually Dutch managers, once they go abroad, they tend to take the whole country with them, right? So Dutch assistants, Dutch players who never had experienced the Premier League before, and then that's usually their early downfall. And he didn't do that. And I think that was already the key and main difference for him to just work with the players that were already there. And yeah, I think that's definitely helped a good start to leave things in place how they were, rather than changing up the squad immediately from day one with inexperienced Premier League players.
Now, just one last one on the film. I believe you're doing a couple of teasers on social media before it's being released fully. When can we expect to see it out?
So I don't know when this podcast will be shown, but it will be tomorrow, which will be Friday, 22nd of November on my YouTube page. Yeah.
Looking forward to it being out there.
Thank you so much.